All right. So my name is Joseph Boyd, and my topic was strength training in secondary physical education. All right. So to begin, we're going to talk about what is the need for strength training in secondary PE. Why should we care? Okay. Well, couple of things that I found to be interesting. And we kind of all know these things as physical educators, but it's always good to revisit them. The CDC recommends that high school students need to be physically active for a minimum of 60 minutes at least 3 days per week. We kind of all know that. Okay. One thing that I found in a research article by Grenacher et al. 2011, the American Heart Association recommends that adolescents participate in a minimum of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity daily. Okay. So you can see there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Okay. CDC recommends 3 days a week. American Heart Association, as of 2011, recommended daily, at least 60 minutes. And according to that same article, only 35.8% of high school students um, met those recommendations. And so that, sorry, I'm moving my video around. And so obviously that's a very low number. Also, recently, according to the CDC, in 2022, okay, only 24% of children ages 6 to 17 meet the daily requirements for physical activity. So you can see how that number from 2011 has even dropped, which indicates to me that we're kind of in a state of crisis when it comes to physical activity, strength training, and physical education. Even this day and age, in one of my previous jobs, I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade. Uh, I was a college strength and conditioning coach for 12 years before I decided to leave that realm, and I took a job with the United States Army Special Forces and for 2 years before transitioning into where I'm at now, into secondary education. Um, our Army, our armed forces, are in the process of lowering standards, physical fitness standards, because they're in the midst of a recruiting crisis. So, as you can see, those numbers are going down, and I believe that now more than ever, there's a need for proper physical education at the secondary level, especially strength training, strength and conditioning. That's kind of my passion anyway. So that's why I chose the topic. So moving on to the next slide, just looking at a brief overview of strength and conditioning or strength training. Strength training in the modern era began in the 19th century with the first organized weightlifting competition in the Olympic Games in 1896. Okay, so quite a while ago, but that's where it kind of came into light in an organized setting for the first time. Okay, throughout the 20th century, strength training continued to gain popularity. And with the rise of bodybuilding in the 1960s and 70s, people started to begin to associate strength training with improving their overall health and well being, which obviously you can see that. They could see changes physically. Okay. So that's a natural association that they're going to have. And now in the 21st century, it's kind of morphed into a very popular form of exercise for all ages. And it's seen as vital to improving one's overall health and fitness. Also, with the rise of activities like CrossFit, things like that, strength training has kind of become very popular. strength and conditioning at the college level and even the high school level at bigger schools. Organized strength and conditioning for sport is very popular these days. Obviously, at the high school level, it's not as popular and not as uh, not as what's the word I'm trying to say, mainstream as it is at the college level, but it's getting there. So now, kind of looking at what do we need to be able to provide a proper strength training program in schools. And it's very simple. Facilities can range from fully equipped weight rooms to gymnasiums with minimal equipment. Um, it's nice to have a room like what you see there on the right. Okay, it's nice to have a fully equipped weight room with bumpers and platforms, and a turf area and every bell and whistle that you could have. That's not what you absolutely have to have. You don't need that stuff. Those are nice to have. If you have a facility like what you see on the left hand side right there, um, you can get by with body weight exercises, some resistance bands if you have them. You don't have to have that stuff. At its very basic foundation, strength training boils down to movement patterns. And you'll see that here in just a second when we go over kind of what everything a program in my mind would look like. So you've kind of got a wide range of things and resources that you can have or not have. First, we're going to kind of look at the purpose for strength training for adolescents. Okay, so according to the book, strength training routines should address all major body parts. Okay, they should be founded in ground-based multi-joint exercises. So ground-based, talking about feet in contact with the ground. Okay, um, most athletic movement, if you think about it, occurs with the feet in contact with the ground. So that's why ground-based movement is a big deal. Comprehensive programming should prevent overdevelopment of specific body parts, thus reducing the likelihood of postural and joint problems. We want to train evenly. We want to train the body evenly. So we want to train upper body and lower body. I'll say the same way, but we want to train it evenly across the board. So we don't want to overemphasize one over the other. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing on the top half and the bottom half and the core in the middle. Okay. Teachers should apply the SAID principle when prescribing strength training exercise. And the SAID principle is, it just says the body is going to adapt to specifically to the demands that are placed upon it. So SAID stands for specific adaptations to imposed demands. Okay. So when you're applying this principle, you got to think about sets versus reps. What are you working for? Are you working for more strength? Or are you working for more endurance? Okay. Take into consideration the rest intervals. If you're having a student lift something for more maximal effort, obviously your rest interval is going to need to be longer. If you're looking at more endurance or repetitive based efforts, then your rest intervals can be a little bit shorter. Okay. So in my mind, let me move my little video screen right here. In my mind, this is kind of what an overall program at the high school level would look like. You see, you've got the overall program, you've got block 0, block 1, block 2, and block 3. Okay. So block 0 and block 1 would be more for 7th graders just entering the secondary physical education realm. Okay, so block 0 is going to deal with movement patterns, spatial awareness, and relative strength, or body weight exercises. Block 1 is going to be there to reinforce the block 0 concepts, develop more core strength, prioritize more mobility, and start introducing the foundational strength exercises of the squat, the bench, the deadlift, things like that, in their most basic forms. Block 2, all right, would be for 8th grade. Block 2 and 3 would be for 8th grade and up. prioritize mobility and flexibility, developing more core strength, looking at multi-joint ground-based barbell exercises, establishing some work capacity, and developing submaximal strength. That would be block 2. And then moving on to block 3, continuing to prioritize mobility and flexibility, still continuing to develop core strength, continuing to progress those ground-based multi-joint barbell exercises. Now we start to develop some energy systems, and I know we're getting a little bit more in the weeds here, away from just strength training, but I'm looking at overall strength and conditioning program for a high school. So start to develop submaximal strength, and then start to get into your maximal strength with those kids. Okay. So now the validity, sorry, I'm moving this all over the place. Now the validity of strength training in PE. So according to Grenasher 2011, adolescents are an important group to target when it comes to fitness promotion. So the fitness status developed during childhood has a positive influence on adult health. And 2 reasons for strength training is appropriate for fitness promotion in adolescents is because it's become one of the most popular sports activities for adolescents, and strength gains of between 30 and 50% are typically observed in untrained adolescents after the implementation of short-term strength training programs. So they're going to see a lot of development early, which will aid in their helping keeping them motivated. Additionally, you're going to also see improvements in fitness, skills, body composition, bone health, and psychosocial well-being. Obviously, we all know that strength training, resistance training is good for the mind as well. So that's also something that's going to be observed in adolescence, which is very positive in this day and age. So assessment, how are we going to assess this? Well, the teacher is going to develop assessments basically corresponding to block 0, block 1, block 2, and block 3. Okay. So teacher is going to develop and create checklists and rubrics to assess each individual components of each block. 7th grade would be assessed on block 0 and 1. 8th through 12th grade would be assessed on blocks 2 through 3. And these are the references that I used.